stay tuned because we're going to show you sitting down and listening to the concern of his single constituent. And fathers are parents too. Welcome to Fathers and Parents too. You recall last time or a few times ago, we had Assemblyman on the show. He brought with us for footage of a meeting where the local legislator sits with the father. We'll come back to footage and he has to do so. Welcome back. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for.
Now, this is what we're going to see is some footage from your local, and I think California chapters. And you have a local, is he a senator, was it?
At the time, Assemblyman.
And now
he is now a senator.
Okay, and he sat down with the guys. I understand he was quite an eye-opener. Tell us what we're going to see first.
John Vasconellos is a bit of a independently minded legislator. He's dresses very casually. We're going to see a segment of a fellow who has false allegations of child abuse of children, and he has quite a story to tell. He's now in supervision. We can probably say some words about that, but well, it's best if we just pull up the popcorn.
Okay, so get your and watch.
Everybody, I got a bit of that. About a year ago, I went through. I've got 4 children, and it was my wife, ex-wife, getting her with the state. She got involved with the sexual offenders group of the inmates. She took me to court, and I lost most everything. Just because she wanted out of the. I got visitation of approximately 25%, and had to live on whatever the child support equation gave me, which wasn't very much, as you guys know. I also was saddled with the burden from the marriage. A lot of debt, things like that. So I was making it through, and a short while later, got, like I said, 4 children. The second oldest child was 4 years old, and through the daycare provider, who was also under the same laws as the paramedic, had observed my daughter playing with herself and doing things like that. Heard my name brought up. Feeling obligated, she made the same kind of call to Child Protective Services, and I immediately lost visitation of all 4 children. The mother jumped in there and extra hearsay, which really shouldn't have been in at all. Snowball everything, saying, "Oh yeah, he's been abusing himself for years," and without having any evidence of her abusing him. Now, proof. Proof. I wasn't even given a reason why. She was bringing the children over. I went up to see, what's wrong with my children. Are they still here? And I was removed from. I was calm. Went to the front door. She called the cops, and he's out there. He's being violent at my front door. Whatever. They approached me for police to ask me to leave, and I said, "Fine. I'd like to know why I'm not seeing my children." Still haven't. It's been 3 weeks at this point. And so they told me, well, she took the cops inside and told them somebody wouldn't let me here. And they said, some sort of against you, and you'll have to be told, notified, but you have to leave this now. As it went on, about a month later, I found out that I had 4 more charges against for child abuse. And how, what's, it's been a thing, and I wanted to find out why. It took 8 months and $100 fees for me to actually get a supervised position. Still in the process. I still see them now every 2 weeks. I see them for an hour and a half. I have to have supervised $100 an hour to watch me see my children. I've got to go through additional evaluations to show that I didn't do anything by a psychologist. They put the children into to see a psychologist because they've been abused. Okay. Before I had to go through this counseling to say, hey, you've been abused, and they're going, oh, what's abuse? I guess I've been abused. State's paying for that. Well, I'm supposed to be paying them back. I need to pay them for the counseling that they're going through for abuse that I've supposedly done. Yeah. So I continue to do this now, and it's been 2 years. What I can see the children now is $70 an hour, which I don't have any money left. I mean, I lost all my 401k, all my savings, I have nothing. I live paycheck. I lost my job. Same reason, because your mind is so, you have nothing left. And if it wasn't for special friends who've really helped me through, I wouldn't be here either. I would just living in a van in a parking lot for months at a time. That's all you have left. And you got to pay lawyers' fees, or they'll leave you high and dry too. So it continues on, and I have to prove that I have not done. How you prove you didn't do something, it's very difficult. They did go on an investigation. They started after the taken away, 8 months, and they said it would take months and months for this. It's a criminal investigation, and they couldn't find anything. Gee, I wonder why. So they couldn't find anything, so now they're just going to wait it out. And until I go and actively pursue this with money I don't really have, go on indefinitely until I actually get myself cleared of this. My lawyers told me this. If I don't do something, it will never go away.
That's how the child support changed.
Oh, yeah, child support. I mean, my visitation went from meager 25% to 0, which enabled her to, we go back, she just took a report, as a matter of fact, last week, visitation is 0, and she gets the maximum benefit from that. And the children have gotten very good, through the counselor, the supervisor that I see every 2 weeks, they write reports saying these children have no fear of him. They have good rapport with him. They come in, they love to see him, to leave him, crying, and he sees no reason why this is to go on. But the other says, no, they've been abused. It continues to go on, and I'm going to continue to fight as long as I'm standing. That's all I can do.
Brent, that was an amazing story. That guy was dealing with allegations of sexual abuse. Could only see his kids with someone around observing him. And it seems like his wife was able to have this done to him without him even knowing it was going on. That's not very common, is it?
Oh, it's more common than I'd certainly like to see. It's easy to get these charges, and even if they don't stick, to make them sufficiently well that the children get alienated from their parents.
That's just terrible. This is, and some of this is the result of new laws. I think the phrase I heard was divorced by restraining order in,
Yes.
in states like Massachusetts and some other states. Now, what the Vasconcellos, I think was his name, the legislator that was watching this
Yes.
and hearing it, what was his response? Get a sense
the fellow
of
in the Hawaiian shirt, he was definitely getting an education that hadn't been exposed to these issues, and he was just now finding out that there's a whole class of individuals out there that are getting just the boot.
I think I get a sense that sometimes these legislators pass these laws at the urging of certain special interest groups, and they really have no idea what these laws have until they get this kind of education where they actually come out and hear what they have wrought. It's
part of the educational thrust of free is to educate legislators. It also helps our legislative thrust, and having our own members do it at a meeting where they can come and see a senator, helps our support thrust. And that's why free is doing so well, is that fold mechanism that each supports the other.
Now I'm going to really put you on the spot here, but for all the people out there watching in all the states across the country, if there was one thing they should look into in terms of a law that would help address this issue of false allegations and how it's quickly, it can take over the life of someone, what specific law should they see if it's there, and if not, talk to their legislators?
Well, I'd say probably the mandated order is probably the worst. The immunity that's conferred to anybody that reports these charges, them to report even the most frivolous charges as fact, knowing that in the unlikely circumstance these things are actually true, that they could actually go to jail if they fail to report them.
And once that happens, then immediately that axe comes down and cuts the connection from the
there are
guy and his
limited
kids.
immunities that they can, like a police officer has, that they could use.
Okay. Now what are we going to watch next?
Well, we have another clip here. This fellow is going to be rather upset about the divorce industry, as he calls it. He has many people who get into his case, and again, it's typical of a lot of cases where you get an evaluator and then a second mediator, and then you get somebody as a guardian ad litem, et cetera, and he winds up paying for all of these folks, and it's really enlightening to watch this guy. Let's get some more pop and roll the tape.
All right, let's take a look at this.
I've been married for 7 years, got my PhD from Stanford, currently working full-time, and I guess the main thing that really astonishes me about this whole divorce process is the industry that exists behind it. It's an amazing industry in that you start out with a lawyer, and one person has a lawyer, so another person gets a lawyer, and then you want to try to make things smooth because there's children involved, because you're going to be tied to the other parent for life. So you go through mediation, you find a mediator for the children, and usually ends up being a psychologist. And so then when you want to talk about mediation for finances, well, that guy doesn't know anything, so you get another mediator for finances, so you're up to 4 people already. And psychologists, because so much left for argument, will just literally run up thousands of dollars of bills just to get to the basics of joint custody and something reasonable and time sharing, which even then isn't necessarily reasonable. And I guess one of the things that I see is that it should be maybe automatic that joint custody be the starting point and 50% time be the starting point, rather than being a situation where the father sort of steps in 1 down or 5 down and has to go through thousands and thousands of dollars, so much just to try to get the joint custody issue, which in itself doesn't mean a lot nowadays, because nowadays they talk about primary caretaker. So it's joint custody, and then the primary caretaker has 80–90% of the time, and it should, you know, just so it's. And then of course, if you want to really fight, you can get into evaluations. So now you get evaluators into the picture, and they evaluate each of you and say, oh yeah, you're both great parents this way, you're both terrible parents that way. Great, roll the dice. You pay them money, and then done with that, you go. In my case, my wife was involved in a training program, and she decided to drop out because she found out that if she makes money, that means that I pay her less. So she, within a week of finding that out, told me that the job that she went into was too stressful and dropped out. So we bring in a vocational evaluator. The vocational evaluators create a plan that's 4 or 5 years down the road. She's already got a college education. She's going to go back to school. I mean, she can use her college education to work. And the plan that she's looking at right now will allow her to get a job that will pay just as much as she was about to get in this other arrangement. And so these vocational evaluators are telling her, okay, yeah, you can go through this and we'll step you through this 4 or 5 year plan. I was only married 6.5 years. I mean, it's 7 now, but 6.5 since separation. I don't really feel like I should be financing a whole nother education, a whole nother college education. And so, you know, I'm having to fight this by using the vocational evaluators. And then we're now just starting to get accountants involved. Start looking at the accounts and all that, and to size it all up. And You know, you think it's cut and dry, 50-50, you cut it down the middle. It's not. There's all sorts of things. Boy, there's a lot of argument there. Just little things that come in, you know, it's amazing. You know, and we've just started, and we've already run up $25,000, and I'm still waiting to get a reasonable amount of time with my daughter. I mean, I'm up to about maybe 20% right now with 2 overnights a month. I mean, that's ridiculous. It's just, I see there's going to be thousands of more dollars spent just on mediation for my daughter. And then, of course, there's the therapists. We got a therapist for myself, a therapist for my soon-to-be ex-wife, and we have a therapist for my child. And it's needed. And so you just, it's an amazing industry. You have so many professions being supported by this.
Required by the system, or it's actually needed on the merits?
It's needed on the merits.
Okay.
It's needed on the merits because of all the fighting, in large part. I mean, if things were just cut and dry, then you wouldn't have to go through so much therapy, because you wouldn't get so depressed about the possibility of losing your child. I mean, it really comes down to that. And then, of course, you got the whole court system. So, you know, I easily count over a dozen people involved in our case, and it's barely scratching. And recently, my therapist told me that the lawyer next door to her said, "Don't send me any fathers anymore. I don't even want to represent anymore, because it's just, the system is too hard on them. They get too depressed, and they're just fighting until they just run out of money and give up."
Wow, Brent, that was really depressing. That poor guy. What can be done in the legislature for someone, or legislator?
Well,
Sure.
to his credit, this particular fellow is a regular at our meetings, and he hasn't given up.
Good.
And still hanging in there. In fact, he brings his child to the meetings. It's the only time that he gets to have his child is on the Wednesday nights that we meet. And even though he's really not supposed to, he brings her in just to be near her and still attend our meetings.
Wow.
So he still hasn't given up, and more power to him.
So that shows really that the support aspect of these meetings is really critical for some
really
of these
is.
guys. And
It really is.
if it's helped him to not give up, then you've really made a difference in his life, I'd say, and his children's
well,
life.
yes.
Hopefully.
Yes, we've allowed him to make the difference in his.
So now, what about this? You know, he was right. There is this divorce industry
Yes.
that's incredible, and all this. It's like a financial hemorrhage. What are there any laws coming
There
down
is.
the pipe, or that you recommend that would help that? Or?
What he mentions is the joint custody preference. Of course, that would help a lot. A lot of people believe that this system is corrupt, that we ought to go back to faulted divorce. What some of those people ignore, however, is that the faulted divorce, you trade off the therapist for a private investigator who charges generally more than the average therapist. There is fighting in each and every case in a faulted divorce. So there's very little to keep professionals from reaching into an open pocket if it's allowed there, and the law simply allows the pocket to be open. We need to find a good solution to close those pockets, and one of them is to simply have the joint custody presumption.
Okay. Now, in a joint custody presumption, that means that there's a presumption, which is why it's called that there's joint custody, but that if there's a good reason for it not to be joint custody, the court can certainly consider that, right?
Oh, absolutely. I'm considering the absence of domestic abuse or child sexual abuse.
Okay.
Those things can railroad, and again, there are a lot of allegations of child sexual abuse that can get through and derail those sorts of things. But in all, the joint custody preference is probably the best.
Okay, now we have
Legislative.
to take a break, but then I think you've brought one more clipping for us to watch, haven't you?
Yes, I have.
Great, all right. Well, we'll be back in just a moment, and we'll look at some more of Brent's home movies. Right back.
I'm a dad and a member of FREE, the Father's Rights and Equality Exchange. Most dads out there love to spend more time with their kids, to be a real part of their lives. FREE wants to change the notion that all divorced dads are irresponsible, because most of us are dads who are responsible, and we're working for a chance to share the parenting. If you want to learn more, please call us at 1-500-4DADS. That's 1-500-4DADS.
Because remember, fathers are parents too. Right, Dad?
You got it.
Welcome back. Brent, what's this next clip we're going to see?
Our next clip is the final reactions and commentary that Senator Vasconcellos gives us. Senator Vasconcellos is now in Sacramento, and at least he's been educated on the issues, and these are his basic remarks, his reactions to what we had to say.
Okay,
Let's
roll
roll it.
them. I've always wanted to say that.
Three things that come to mind, or four. First is just I appreciate your coming here and your candor. I'm not unfamiliar with pain in my own life, and so I sense it and I respect it. You know. Second, what I've heard confirms what I've learned in my 30 years, that the law is never a very good solution for anything. It's always make up after the fact. When humans can't solve their problems, the law tries to come in and make up for it, and it's never enough. It can't be, because they're human problems, and it's too little and too late. That we do the best we can, because the kid has to have some place to go to have his or her interests. And in its efforts, I mean, in its efforts to this kind of 4 points. First is the law is a poor substitute. We do the best we can. Second, in particular, the law doesn't often have. Each case is so unique. The child, the parent relationship, the anger, the issues, and you need a remarkable array. I mean, it's a dozen people almost figure out what is right in this case. So it's hard for a big system to meet individual situations in a very smart way. It's just hard, not saying it's hard. Third is that, you know, there's a legal saying, a bad case makes bad law, and when there's one bad father who abuses his kids, or a bad mother, or one who fails to support, or some number of, then there's an impression that there are a lot more, and it kind of slops over. It's not a defense. I'm trying to just think through what the complications are, to find a solution. And the fourth thing is that this is a profound change in society. Disintegration of the family, gender roles, macho model, where fathers could, you know, treat, or men treat their wives in ways that were hardly appropriate, but there's a changing more, as trying to adjust to that is, I think, awkward for individuals and the system. Those things are kind of just, I'm just thinking about. That complicated. Third is, I would think it would be helpful. I mean, I don't know, I mean, most of what I've heard is not that the law per se, although the formula question raises a particular, that the law is so much out of whack as the attitudes that inform its application, the money in the system and the professionals and the suspicion of fathers. That probably is probably is exaggerated.
What did he mean by that? So you mentioned the suspicion of fathers.
Yeah.
What did he mean?
The bias that fathers are at fault, you know, in any allegation, no matter how groundless, can be grounds for something serious happening.
Well, Brent, it certainly sounds like Mr. Vasconcellos got it. Let's hope he does something about it now. We have a question for you from the audience.
Fine.
Yes.
Yes, I've heard over and over again about the great financial strain that the fathers are going through on this. Do you have any suggestions or comments of how we may be able to lower the financial burden placed upon us?
That's a very good question, and a lot of guys are probably looking for the answer. Much of the answer lies in how you approach the problem of divorce and how much conflict there is. Generally, if both parties agree, in almost every state, they just allow you to do basically whatever it is you want to do as far as splitting up. That's an extremely cheap solution. I generally tell fathers that they should do things in a particular order, and that is negotiate first, and then if that doesn't fail, then mediate. A mediator runs you about $50 to $100 an hour, and then, and only then, litigate. Lawyers charge out at anywhere from $150 to $250 an hour, and it goes up from there, and it can get very expensive once you go to the last option.
Okay, and it seems to me, too, that some of the problem is that the laws make it so easy, as that one fellow talking about the divorce industry mentioned. Mm-hmm. It's so easy to bring in more and more people, you know, in the jurisdiction within which I am been practicing, it's very simple to get the court to order, just as he said, for each party, and to order a special master, and to order evaluations of both parents, and eventually you've got 6 to 10 people all involved. And the really sad thing is that often then ends up paying for most of it, along with the attorney's fees for both parties. Is there any move to put into place some law that would incentivize maybe streamlining the process for couples who agree to do some alternative dispute resolution? Would that be a viable kind of law?
That wouldn't be a bad thing. We could try to introduce it. There has been a legislation passed to adjudicate divorces administratively, and they replace the judge and jury system with a bureaucrat, essentially, a clerk who will just decide for you. We're not sure entirely, but it is considered to be a cheaper option.
Mm-hmm.
We don't believe that fathers will get much better shake out of a bureaucrat than he would out of a judge who's elected.
Okay, now Mr. Vasconcellos mentioned that he noticed that there seemed to be what he called suspicion of father, or a willingness to see the father as the bad guy. We've only got 30 seconds for you to do this, but why don't you tell the people out there how bad can they let their legislators know that the fathers aren't the bad guys? What can they do to present a good, positive image to their capitals in their states?
The first thing is to try not to convey that you're angry, or that you're going to tear down the system, or that you're going to take your court case to the Supreme Court, and that your constitutional rights are violated. Let them know that you're concerned about your children, that you're concerned that your role in their life is being observed, that you're concerned that their values are not being observed. You'll find that you get much better response from public officials at all levels if you try and take that sort of attack.
Okay, that's great. And if people want to get involved on the local level, can they contact your national headquarters and find out what to do?
I wish they would.
Do you have a national number you'd like to give out?
We sure do. 500 for dads. It's 1-500-FORDADS.
Website address?
We're also on the web. www.dix.com/FREE.
Mr. Wellman, thank you so much for bringing those tapes and for being here and for sharing this with us. We really
truly my pleasure.
appreciate it. And thank you all for being here, and be sure to join us next week on Fathers Are Parents.